Yaron, we can't keep eating microwave noodles every night. His 6-year-old daughter, Poppy, said from the kitchen table, her tiny feet swinging under the chair. Yaron Whitmore pressed his knuckles into his eyes and exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He stood behind the cracked counter of their small 2-bedroom apartment just outside of downtown Chicago, staring at the dented fridge like it held answers. It didn't even hold milk. I know, kiddo. He turned and gave her a tired smile. I'll figure something out. How about pancakes for dinner? Again, Poppy grinned. With chocolate chips, he nodded. You got it. Yaron wasn't always this broke. Before his wife walked out 2 years ago and left him holding a toddler and a pile of medical bills, he had a decent job at a construction firm. But between juggling childcare, losing shifts for daycare pickups, and Poppy's asthma treatments, things spiraled fast. Now he drove for a rideshare app during the day and helped a buddy repair HVAC units at night when he could score the work. He scraped together enough change for a small bag of chocolate chips and promised himself tomorrow would be better. It had to be. That night, after Poppy finally fell asleep curled next to him on the couch, his friend Dean called. Bro, I know you're not into this crap, but hear me out, Dean said. My sister-in-law set up this blind date thing for her charity gala. It's just dinner. You get a free meal and maybe a shot at something good. You need to get out. I don't have time for dates, man. I barely have time to shower. Dean didn't back down. It's at Leighton, fancy as hell, free food, no pressure, just show up. If it sucks, leave. If she's weird, fake a call and bounce. After a long pause, Yaron sighed. Who's watching Poppy? My mom. She's been begging to babysit. That got him. Saturday night, Yaron stood outside Leighton in a borrowed blazer that was a size too tight, wondering what the hell he was doing. He stepped into the restaurant, all mirrors and chandeliers and people in clothes that probably cost more than his rent. A hostess led him to a private table in the back. He hadn't even sat down when she arrived. She wore a navy dress that hugged her curves in a way that made it impossible not to notice. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like she belonged in a room like this. Her brown hair was pinned up, a few strands falling loose, lips painted in a soft rose shade that matched her poised smile. Hi, she said, holding out her hand. I'm Leighton. Yaron, he said, shaking it, trying not to stare too hard. Thanks for showing up, I guess. She tilted her head, amused. You say that like you expected me not to. I expected someone older or wildly into crystals. Leighton laughed. No crystals, and I expected someone with a tie, so we're even. He relaxed a little. Her laugh was warm, not forced. Blind dates are weird, Yaron said, scanning the wine list and closing it just as fast. I don't even know what half of this stuff is. I'll order for us, she said, her tone calm but confident. Only if you trust me, he raised a brow. I'm letting a stranger pick my dinner. This is wild. They talked for over an hour. About music, food, places they wanted to visit. Yaron didn't mention Poppy at first, not because he was ashamed, but because he didn't want to scare this woman off with his baggage. But something about Leighton made him want to be real. My daughter's name is Poppy, he said quietly, somewhere between dessert and the check. She's 6, bright, funny, obsessed with outer space. Leighton blinked in surprise, then smiled. Tell me more about her, he did, and she actually listened. When the server returned, Yaron reached for his worn wallet. Leighton stopped him. Dinner's covered. You don't even know me. Let me at least. I invited you here, remember? She said, tone firm but light. I wanted to meet someone genuine. You are. Yaron looked at her, really looked at her. She didn't flinch at his story, didn't pity him, just sat there like he was worth sitting with. Outside, the wind had picked up. Leighton pulled her coat tighter. I had a good time. Me too, he said, his voice lower now. Didn't expect to, but yeah, I really did. She stepped closer. Would you want to do this again? He nodded before he could think too hard. Yeah, I would. She touched his arm. Great, I'll call you. He watched her step into a sleek black town car that pulled up the second she raised her hand. He stood there on the sidewalk, heart racing, wondering who exactly she was, because no normal person had a driver waiting outside a restaurant. Yaron got his answer 3 days later. He was fixing a busted AC unit in a Loop office building when he saw her face on the TV in the lobby. A news segment ran across the screen. Leighton Osborne, youngest CEO in OS Tech history, expands global tech initiatives. He nearly dropped his wrench. She wasn't just successful. She ran one of the biggest tech companies in the country. He wiped his hands on his jeans and stared at her face on the screen. The same face that smiled at him over creme brulee 3 nights ago. She didn't tell him. Not once, and somehow, that made him like her even more. Later that night, after Poppy was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Yaron sat on the edge of his bed, still processing. He liked her. A lot. But she was way out of his league. A CEO. What was she doing with a guy who couldn't even afford cable? Before he could talk himself out of it, there was a knock at his door. He opened it to find Leighton standing there, holding a brown paper bag. "I hope you like Thai," she said. "I figured it was my turn to pick dinner." He just stared. "Are you mad I didn't tell you?" He shook his head slowly. "I'm just wondering why someone like you would want to be here, with me." Leighton stepped inside, dropped the bag on the table, and looked him straight in the eye. "I didn't fall for your bank account, Yaron," she said. "I fell for the way you talked about your daughter. The way you looked at me like I was a real person, not a headline. I fell for you." Yaron didn't move for a second. Then he stepped forward, took her face in his hands, and kissed her, the kind of kiss that said everything he hadn't figured out how to say yet. And just like that, the struggling dad who thought he was too broken for love started to fall. "Hard, you really live here?" Yaron asked, glancing up at the towering glass building that seemed to stretch into the clouds. Leighton stepped out of the elevator and nodded. "Top floor." "There's space for Poppy too, if she ever visits." He followed her into the penthouse, his boots silent against polished wood floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a skyline that didn't seem real. There was a grand piano in the corner, untouched. The whole place smelled faintly of jasmine and something warm like vanilla and cedar. "You're not going to offer me slippers and a robe with a crest on it?" he asked, trying to mask his unease with humor. "No robes," she said. "But the kitchen's stocked. You want coffee?" He hesitated. "Sure." "Why not?" While she moved across the kitchen, he took in the space clean lines, minimalist design, and artwork that probably cost more than his car. He still had dirt under his fingernails from this morning's HVAC job. He rubbed them on the inside of his palm. Leighton poured 2 cups and slid one his way. "You look like you're waiting for something to explode." He leaned against the counter. "I've never been in a place like this. It's like stepping into a magazine." She tilted her head, watching him. "Is that a bad thing?" "No," he said quickly. "Just a different world, you get used to it." "I don't think I'm supposed to." She handed him the cup. "Why not?" He stared into the dark liquid. "Because people like me don't belong in places like this. I fix stuff that's broken. Not the kind of guy who drinks imported coffee in a penthouse." Leighton leaned on the island across from him. "You think I care about that?" He didn't answer. She set her cup down. "When I was 19, I spent 3 months living out of my car. I was interning at a startup that couldn't pay me. I showered at the gym and ate peanut butter out of the jar. Money wasn't always a given." Yaron blinked. "You lived in your car," she nodded. "The backseat of a '98 Civic, not glamorous." "Why'd you do that?" "Because I had an idea," she said. "And I knew if I gave up then, I'd never forgive myself." Yaron took a sip of coffee, letting that settle. "You know," he said after a beat, "it's weird. You're the only person I've met who doesn't look at me like I'm some cautionary tale." "That's because you're not," she said, voice steady. "You're a man who shows up. That means something." He looked at her, really looked, and saw it no pity, no discomfort, just a calm certainty that rattled something inside him. "Leighton," he said carefully, "whatever this is between us, it's moving fast. Are you asking me to slow down? I'm asking you if you're ready for what comes with me." She crossed her arms. "You mean Poppy?" "Yeah, and the mess, the schedules, the fact that I can't just hop on a plane to Paris tomorrow." She stepped closer. "I don't want Paris, I want real." He didn't know what to say to that. "So," she said, lowering her voice, "what if I meet her?" Yaron blinked. "Poppy?" "Yes, I want to, if that's okay." He hadn't expected that, not yet. "She's got a science fair next week," he said slowly. "She's building a volcano that's not supposed to explode but probably will." Leighton smiled. "May I come?" "You sure you want to trade boardrooms for papier-mâché and glitter glue?" She nodded. "Absolutely." The next Thursday, Leighton showed up at Poppy's school in jeans and a soft gray sweater, holding a bouquet of bright orange tulips. Yaron crouched beside Poppy outside the classroom. "You ready to meet someone special?" Poppy adjusted her astronaut headband. "Is it the lady who brought Thai food?" He blinked. "How'd you know?" "I saw the bag in the trash the next morning. It said Lotus Garden, you don't go there, too expensive." He chuckled. "You're way too smart," she beamed. "Daddy, I like her already." Inside the classroom, chaos reigned. Tables were covered with baking soda, glue, and kids shouting about lava. Leighton crouched beside Poppy's project like it was a world-changing invention. "So," she said seriously, "this is the famous volcano." Poppy nodded. "It's called Mount Boom. It's got a hidden chamber for extra fizz." "That's brilliant," Leighton said. "Did you test it yet?" "Not yet. Want to help?" Leighton rolled up her sleeves. "Lead the way, Captain." Yaron stepped back and watched the two of them together, his daughter explaining chemical reactions with wide eyes, Leighton nodding like every word mattered. Later that night, after Poppy had fallen asleep with glitter still clinging to her cheek, Yaron walked Leighton out to the street. "She really likes you," he said. "She's extraordinary," Leighton replied. He hesitated. "I need you to be sure about this." "I am. You say that now, but this isn't going to get easier. There are nights I can't sleep because I'm calculating how many days I can stretch a single box of cereal. I can't give you yachts or galas or whatever your world usually looks like." "I don't want any of that," she said, voice low. "I want dinner at your place, even if it's cereal. I want to watch science fairs explode and walk home with glitter in my hair." "I want the chaos," he exhaled, slower this time. Leighton stepped closer. "I don't care if the floorboard creaks or the wallpaper peels. I care that you love your daughter like she hung the moon. I care that you're honest, that you show up." He reached for her hand. "I don't know what I'm doing." "Neither do I," she said. "But I know I want to do it with you." And in that moment, under a flickering street lamp and the hum of distant traffic, Yaron realized something he hadn't dared hope for. He wasn't just falling in love, he was being seen. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a man trying to keep the pieces from collapsing. He felt like someone building something new, something real, with someone who didn't just want him despite the cracks. She wanted him because of them. Yaron adjusted Poppy's backpack on his shoulder as they stepped into the marble-floored lobby of OS Tech's downtown headquarters. Poppy clutched her sketchbook, eyes darting around the soaring atrium with open curiosity. "Is this where she works?" she whispered. "Yeah," Yaron said. "She invited us." A receptionist with a headset waved them toward a private elevator. Yaron hesitated before stepping in, the doors closing behind them with a soft chime. He'd almost said no to this. A personal tour of OS Tech's Innovation Lab wasn't exactly a typical Saturday plan, but Leighton had been insistent, and Poppy hadn't stopped talking about it since she got the invite. The doors opened into a sun-drenched space, lined with curved glass walls and glowing digital displays. Leighton waited near a display of robotic limbs, her hair pulled into a loose braid, wearing a soft charcoal blazer over a white tee, casual but still composed in a way that reminded Yaron how different their lives were. Poppy ran ahead. "Miss Leighton," Leighton crouched to greet her. "You brought your sketches." Poppy nodded and held them up. "I drew a rocket that folds into a house." Leighton looked through the pages like she was reviewing blueprints. "This is brilliant." "Come on, I want to show you something." Yaron followed behind them, noting how every person they passed greeted Leighton with polite nods. Respectful, focused. She didn't just run this place, she commanded it. They stopped in front of a long glass wall where a team of engineers worked inside a lab. Leighton tapped a panel beside the door, and it slid open to reveal a sleek workspace humming with soft mechanical sounds. She pointed to a table where a prototype of a compact solar generator was being assembled. "This is one of our newer projects. It's designed for emergency zones, compact enough to carry by hand, but powerful enough to run a hospital bed or water pump." Poppy's eyes widened. "You make stuff that helps people?" Leighton nodded. "That's the goal." Yaron leaned in. "You built all this from scratch, not alone," she said. "But yes, this place is my life's work." Poppy wandered further into the lab, trailing a junior engineer who offered her a lab coat 2 sizes too big. Yaron stayed beside Leighton, watching Poppy laugh as she examined a robotic arm that waved when she pressed a button. "She fits in here better than I do," he said. "You both do," Leighton replied without hesitation. He turned to her. "Do you always know what you're doing? You act like you've got it all figured out." Her shoulders shifted. "I have a team of 600. I make decisions that affect lives and livelihoods, but when I think about you and Poppy, that's the part that scares me," he blinked. "Scares you," she kept her eyes on the lab, "because it matters more. Business decisions are calculated, but this, us. There's no algorithm for that." Yaron leaned against the wall. "I thought I'd be the one feeling out of place." "You still might be," she said, "but I'm not asking you to become someone else. I just want you here as you are." They stood in silence for a moment, watching Poppy pretend to run diagnostics on a tablet she couldn't possibly understand. "Come with me," Leighton said suddenly. She led him down a side corridor away from the lab. They stopped in front of a tall, frosted glass door. She unlocked it with a fingerprint scan and motioned him inside. The room was smaller, warmer, less corporate, more personal. Framed sketches lined the wall, early product mock-ups and hand-drawn notes. A shelf held a collection of small toys, figurines, puzzles, a tiny space shuttle made of recycled metal. "This was my first office," Leighton said. "Before the company grew, I kept it." Yaron stepped closer to the shelf. "These were yours." "I used to fix things when I was a kid," she said. "Toys, radios, anything I could take apart. My dad said I could either break the world or build it." He glanced at her. "Looks like you chose the second one." "I try." She paused. "He died when I was 17, heart failure. We didn't have money for his medication. That's why I built this company. So no kid has to watch their parent get sicker because they can't afford help." Yaron didn't speak. The air felt heavier now, not with tension, but with truth. "I've been alone a long time," she said. "I didn't think I'd ever let someone into this part of my life. But when I saw you with Poppy, when I saw the way you fight for her, I realized I didn't want to keep building alone." He reached for her hand. "I'm not afraid of your world, Leighton. I'm afraid you'll wake up one day and realize I don't belong in it." She met his gaze. "Then I'll remind you. Every day if I have to." They stood there, the hum of the building around them, her fingers curled into his like a promise. Back in the lab, Poppy was seated at a console, her face lit by the screen as she and the engineer animated the tiny robot to do a clumsy dance. "I think she's teaching your team a few things," Yaron said as they approached. Leighton laughed softly. "They could use the help." Later that night, as they stepped out into the cool evening air, Leighton stopped on the sidewalk. "I want you to stay," she said, suddenly serious. "With me. Not just visit. Live here." Yaron blinked. "Leighton, I know it's fast," she said, "and I know it's a lot, but I want to build something with you. I want this to be home for both of you." He looked at the street, at the people moving past them with their own lives, their own plans. Then he looked at her. "You're serious," as a heartbeat. He let out a slow breath. "I have to think about Poppy." "I already did," she said. "There's space for her drawings, her telescope, even that lava-stained volcano, whatever she needs." Yaron didn't answer right away. But the way he looked at her, like she'd somehow cracked open a part of him that had been sealed shut for too long, said more than words. She reached into her bag and handed him a key card. "Just think about it." He took it, fingers brushing hers, and nodded once. As she turned to go, Yaron stood there, the card warm in his palm, heart thudding in his chest. He wasn't just falling. He was standing on the edge of something bigger than he'd ever imagined. Rain sheeted across the windows of the modest apartment, casting watery shadows over the walls. Yaron sat at the kitchen table, Poppy curled up in his lap, her soft breathing steady against his chest. Her telescope leaned against the wall, one of its legs taped where it had cracked last winter. The keycard Leighton had given him sat in the center of the table between a half-finished science worksheet and an empty cereal bowl. He hadn't touched it in a week. Dean's voice echoed in his head from earlier that day. "You think she's asking you to move in because she pities you. You think she's the type of woman who does anything out of guilt." Yaron had said nothing. Because deep down, he wasn't afraid of her motives. He was afraid of being seen too clearly, of her seeing the late notices in his mailbox, the nights he counted quarters for gas, the part of him that had grown used to surviving, not thriving. But then Poppy had come home with a flyer from school, a weekend camp for kids interested in astrophysics. She'd clutched it like it was treasure, eyes bright. The tuition? Laughable. There wasn't a world where he could afford it. He looked down at her now, her tiny fingers curled into the fabric of his hoodie. He picked up the keycard. 2 days later, he stood in the grand foyer of Leighton's penthouse, holding a cardboard box filled with a handful of books, a bundle of worn socks, and Poppy's glitter-covered notebook. Poppy twirled in the open space, barefoot on the polished floor, her favorite stuffed astronaut tucked under one arm. "You're quiet," Leighton said, appearing beside him, barefoot herself, her expression unreadable. "I didn't want to come here with nothing," he said, setting the box down gently. "I wanted to come here with a plan, with something to offer." She stepped closer. "You're offering something I never had before, a family." He met her eyes. "This isn't a temporary thing for me." "I don't do temporary," she said. "Not when it counts," he exhaled slowly. "I've been scared to step into this world with you. Not because I don't trust you, but because I didn't think someone like you would ever want to build something real with someone like me." Leighton reached for his hand. "You're not someone like anyone. You're you, and I want you." "Both of you?" That night, they ordered takeout and sat on the floor of the living room surrounded by unpacked boxes and empty cartons. Poppy fell asleep between them, her head resting against Leighton's thigh, the television playing a muted space documentary in the background. "I've never had this," Leighton said quietly, brushing a strand of hair from Poppy's forehead. "It's not about the money or the company or the legacy. It's this, the quiet, the belonging." Yaron turned to her. "I've spent so long keeping my head above water, I forgot what it felt like to reach for something better." "You don't have to tread water anymore," she said. "You're home." Weeks passed, Poppy adjusted with startling ease. She'd claimed a sunlit corner of the penthouse for her telescope and filled it with drawings of constellations and planets. Leighton had a bookshelf installed just for her astronomy books. Yaron found himself waking up earlier, making breakfast while Leighton read emails next to him at the kitchen island, her hand resting casually on his back like it belonged there. One morning, Leighton set a small envelope beside his coffee mug. "What's this?" he asked. She looked at him over the rim of her cup. "Open it." Inside was a printed confirmation, Poppy's camp tuition paid in full. "I was going to figure it out," he said, throat tight. "I know," she replied, "but now you don't have to. She'll lose her mind," he murmured. "She's been practicing her presentation in the mirror every night." "I heard," Leighton said with a soft smile. "She's got a theory about dark matter that scares me." Later that night, Yaron stood on the rooftop terrace, the city lights flickering below. Leighton joined him, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders, the wind tugging at the edges. "I've been thinking," he said, voice low, "about what you said, about building something." She looked up at him, waiting. "I want to give you something too, something that isn't a solution or a fix. Just something true." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small ring. Simple, silver, no diamonds, just clean lines and quiet intention. "I know I can't match your world in money or power, but I can give you something no one else can, my whole heart, every day." Without fail, she stared at the ring, eyes glassy but steady. "Are you asking me?" "I'm telling you," he said, "that I choose you, not because I feel lucky, though I do, but because you're the first person who made me believe I could have more. That I could deserve more." She stepped in, took the ring, and slid it onto her finger like it had always belonged there. "I've been building things my whole life," she said. "But this us is the first thing that feels like home." He pulled her into him, their kiss soft and sure, the city humming quietly below. The wedding came 3 months later. Not in a grand ballroom or a distant villa, but in the OS Tech courtyard garden, under a canopy of string lights and early autumn leaves. Poppy stood between them as they exchanged vows, wearing a silver dress with stars embroidered along the hem. She handed them their rings and declared it official before the officiant could speak. Dean cried harder than anyone. As the night wound down, Leighton took Yaron's hand and led him away from the crowd. They stopped in front of a door he'd never noticed before. "What's this?" he asked. "A surprise," she said. Inside was a smaller lab, quiet and waiting. On the wall was a sign. "The Poppy Initiative Innovation for Kids by Kids." Below it, a picture of Poppy holding Mount Boom, grinning with her front teeth missing. She told me she wanted to build things that helped people, Leighton said, so I gave her a place to start. Yaron looked at her, heart full. You didn't just change our lives, you gave us a future. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. You gave me one too. And as the music drifted from the courtyard and laughter echoed off the glass walls of the empire she had built, Yaron kissed his wife, the woman who had seen him at his lowest and loved him anyway, not because he had something to prove, but because he was already enough. The first time Yaron stepped into the boardroom as Leighton's husband, he wasn't wearing a suit. He wore jeans, a soft gray sweater, and a wedding band that caught the light every time he shifted his hand. The room was filled with department leads and division heads, all sharp lines and polished shoes, waiting for Leighton to begin her quarterly innovation review. But before she could speak, she nodded to Yaron. He cleared his throat, not nervous, just aware. I know I don't look like your usual presenter. I probably don't sound like one either, but I'm not here to talk numbers. I'm here because I've seen what this company can do from the outside, and now I get to help shape it from the inside. He walked to the center of the room, a tablet in his hand displaying sketches from a group of fourth graders at a community center he and Leighton had started funding quietly, without press releases or photo ops. These kids designed a water filtration system using old soda bottles and gravel. It worked. Barely, but it worked. They're not engineers, they're not even in middle school, but they're thinking like problem solvers. Which means they're thinking like you. He glanced at Leighton, who gave him a subtle nod. I'm proposing we expand the youth initiative, not just in the city, nationwide. We create kits. We send them to schools that have nothing but drive. We offer mentorship, not for exposure. For impact? The room was quiet for a beat too long. Then one of the senior engineers said, What kind of budget are you thinking? Yaron smiled, the kind that came from knowing exactly what mattered. We don't need a huge one to start, just enough to prove it works. Let the kids show you what they can build, then you'll never question the investment again. After the meeting, Leighton caught up with him in the corridor, her tablet tucked under her arm. You didn't ask me before you planned all that. If I had, you would have said yes anyway. She tilted her head. You're right. He leaned in. You love me more now that I'm disrupting your boardroom, don't you? I'm terrified and wildly impressed. Which, unfortunately, means yes. They walked the rest of the hall in silence, their fingers brushing. That night, Poppy sat cross-legged in the middle of the living room, filling out an application for the junior science symposium she hadn't stopped talking about for weeks. Her handwriting was crooked but determined, her tongue poking slightly from the corner of her mouth in concentration. Yaron looked over at Leighton. I was thinking about something. That's never not dangerous, she said, curling into the arm of the couch beside him. I want to buy a building. Leighton raised an eyebrow. That's new, a small one, in our old neighborhood, something we can turn into a community center. After school programs, workshops, maybe even a coding lab. She studied him. You're serious. I don't want to just live in this new life. I want to turn around and build a bridge back to the people still stuck where I was. I want Poppy to see that success isn't just about what you take with you, but what you leave behind. Leighton crossed her legs beneath her. I'll match whatever you put in. I thought you might. She leaned in and kissed him, slow and firm, her hand curling around the back of his neck. When she pulled back, her voice was soft. I hope you know you changed my life. He shook his head. No, you opened a door. I just walked through it. Spring came early that year. They hosted their wedding reception again, this time not for them, but for the city. The courtyard of OS Tech was transformed into a garden evening, with food trucks and music, and an open invitation for families, staff, and neighbors. Poppy ran wild in a silver hoodie, dragging 2 kids from her new school to every activity booth like she owned the place. Yaron stood beside Leighton beneath a canopy of arching lights, his arm wrapped around her waist. They watched as a group of teenagers from the new youth initiative presented a working prototype of a solar-powered stove made from recycled materials. Leighton turned toward him, her voice low. You realize we have 3 more of these presentations tonight. I brought snacks. Of course you did. He kissed her temple. I married a woman who runs a tech empire and still knows how to braid a 6-year-old's hair before school. I had to come prepared, she laughed, the kind of laugh that came from a place deep inside her, untouched by the weight of boardrooms or expectations. By summer, the community center was open. Poppy cut the ribbon with oversized scissors and gave a speech that made the local news. Yaron taught basic carpentry in the afternoons and helped students build everything from desk organizers to a working model of a drawbridge. Leighton dropped by between meetings, sometimes staying to help with circuitry or to sit cross-legged on the floor while a group of kids brainstormed robot names. They never called it charity. They called it a beginning. One evening, after the last student had gone home and the sun dipped low behind the city skyline, Yaron locked the center doors and turned to find Leighton waiting by the curb. She leaned against her car, arms folded, a quiet smile playing on her face. "I thought you had a call with investors." "I did. It ended early." He stepped closer. "Everything okay?" I told them I'm stepping back, not from the company, just from the pace. I hired a new COO. I want to be home by dinner. I want to take Poppy to the planetarium on Thursdays. I want to build things that don't always need a quarterly report. He brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "You sure?" She nodded. "I've been chasing something for a long time. Turns out I found it in a broken apartment with a single dad and a lava-covered volcano." He kissed her then, right there on the sidewalk, under the faded awning of the center they built together. It wasn't grand, it wasn't extravagant, but it was real. By fall, they had a rhythm. Mornings were filled with laughter and cereal and the occasional hunt for missing homework. Afternoons meant pickup lines and project boards. Evenings were quiet, full of soft music and shared meals. Sometimes, when the stars were clear, they sat on the terrace and let Poppy point out constellations with her telescope while they held hands and stayed quiet. At night, when the city settled and everything was still, Yaron would watch Leighton sleep beside him, her brow smooth, her hand always reaching for his in the dark, and he'd whisper the same thing he said the night they first moved in. "You're home now." She always squeezed his hand in reply, even in sleep. Everything they built, every cracked floorboard, every trembling first step, every risk they took, it all led here, not to perfection, but to love, to belonging, to a life that was finally completely theirs.